This activity will be looking at the different types of equipment that we use in agriculture, especially if we were going to use these in a lab setting, because there's so many things in agriscience that need to be done in a very specific way. So we're going to review a few of these today, and then you'll have the opportunity to record it onto that PDF chart that you have. You need to record what it looks like to you, and then also excuse me, what it does. And then there is a Google quiz that goes with this later that you can use these notes for to complete that as well. So the first slide, this is, of course, this guy is wearing a lab apron. So the apron is a safety item that's very important. It should be worn when working with chemicals and preserved materials, and also it's used to protect the clothes and the body. The second slide is called an alcohol burner, and so we will use these in activities. At times, it's made of glass. It is used to produce heat, and it can be used to compare fuel sources. And so it has a wick there at the bottom that wicks up the liquid that you use to be able to burn certain things and to be able to burn certain fuel types and allow you to be able to heat things or to capture some of the gas that comes off of it. The next one is a beaker. And the beaker is made of glass or Pyrex, and it holds liquids. So it can hold hot liquids or cold liquids, and then it can measure. You can see the measurement marks on the side, but it's not accurate. That's the thing you have to remember. It is not as accurate as the graduated cylinder that we have coming later, but this is a beaker. The next one is called a burette clamp. Now, in this case, it's holding a pipetting situation, but a burette clamp is made to put on a ring stand, which is something we'll have later in the presentation, but it holds test tubes and other small items. So it holds them up in the air, like if we were putting one above an alcohol burner, for instance, and allows you to be able to hold something small. This is a dissection kit, and the dissection kit, this one in particular is used when we do dissections of animals which are in some of the animal science classes, or small specimens, either plants or animals that we might be looking at. But it's usually got scalpels, forceps, picks in there, and it's used to dissect specimens. The next one is called a dropper, and you've seen these types. This one has a little bit different of a design on it, but a dropper essentially has the rubber bulb at the top and either glass or plastic portion at the bottom. It's used to move liquids from place to place, and it's very low accuracy because you can just move drops from one place to the other, and you don't usually measure those. We'll have something later called a pipette that's usually more accurate when you're moving liquids. This is called an electronic balance, which we will need at times, but we'll just use a kitchen scale, which is what most people will have. And so we'll do a couple activities with these where you have to measure out things. But this is a measurement tool. It's very accurate, and it's used to determine mass. We may say weight, but mass is truly what we're talking about. These are very simple, but we need to wear gloves in some cases because you never know what kind of chemicals you might be handling, or materials that you don't want to get on your skin, but they are worn to protect your hands and skin. This is a graduated cylinder. Oftentimes it's made of glass or plastic. This one in this case is plastic. It's used to hold liquids but it provides very accurate measurements. So if you see this one, it's set up to go in milliliters, and you could put 13 milliliters in there if you wanted to. Whereas on a graduated or on a beaker that we had before is not as accurate and doesn't show each and every little measurement level. This is a microscope. You've seen these before. This is called a compound microscope. So it has multiple different measurement levels on it. There are other ones called dissecting microscopes where you can look at things very small that are only 2 times or 4 times magnification. These you'll be able to see actual cells or smaller. This is a Petri dish. It's either made of glass or plastic. It's a very shallow dish. This is only one side of it. Typically they have a top lid that goes with this. And we use these to hold small things that we're using for experiments, but we can also make culture samples so that we can look and see if something will grow on there, like a mold or a fungus, and do some experiments with that. Both of these things are called pipettes. The one on the left is typically just a plastic bulb, but it has little markings where you can pull liquid up into it that will come up and you can measure it. The one on the right is called a micropipetter. This is used in a lot of lab settings where you use really, really small amounts of liquid that you move from place to place, especially when you're working with DNA samples. This is called a ring stand. It is a support stand for labs where we can attach things to it so that it doesn't fall over. And it's typically made of metal. Those are the easiest ones. You'll hook a burette clamp to them, or later we will look at the support ring, and that can get connected also. These are safety glasses, different types. It depends on what you're doing. But those should be worn when you're working with chemicals, fire, materials that may bounce off into your eyes. There's different kinds. They're especially important in a lab or in a shop setting, and that's the big thing, is to protect your eyes. This is a support ring. This gets attached to that ring stand we saw earlier and allows you to put things on it. So it's a support for larger items. So if you put a mesh top or a mesh cover on it, you could set a beaker on there and then put the alcohol burner underneath to increase the temperature of whatever liquid you had. Or it can be used to hold things in different ways for whatever experiment. This one here is a test tube. This one just has a blue liquid in it. Typically, most of the time they're made of glass. Sometimes they are utilized to be able to be plastic, and they'll hold small amounts of liquids, and then they will you can heat them up and do different experiments with them. And the last one is a thermometer. This is a measuring device. Obviously, you use it to determine temperature in Celsius or Fahrenheit. This happens to be a glass one that we use for different experiments. They're similar to the items you might have on the outside of your house telling the temperature, of the outside too. But this is one we can put into different liquids. So this is the last part of that presentation.